Hey everyone, we're going to get started in just a moment. I'm just letting a few more people join us here that are in the queue. Okay, well, hi everyone. I'm Dan Foster. I serve as the Chief Operating Officer and an Executive Coach here at Building Champions, and I'm so glad that you've joined me today. You know, at Building Champions, we believe that great leadership always starts with self leadership. In fact, we often say that your self leadership precedes team effectiveness. And we've seen this play out time and time again over nearly 30 years of coaching leaders. When leaders take ownership of their growth, they show up differently. They bring more clarity, more courage, and more humility into the way they lead others. And here's the ripple effect. When leaders lead themselves well, their teams start to thrive. People feel more engaged. They work better together and they bring their best thinking to the table. And when a team is healthy and aligned like that, collaboration doesn't just happen. It becomes the fuel for real innovation. So in our short time together today, here's what I want to do. First, I'll redefine collaboration in a way that makes it practical in your everyday meetings. Second, I'll show you why collaboration is so essential to innovation. And third, I'll share 4 simple practices you can begin using this week to make collaboration a natural part of how your team works. All right, let's jump in. So let's talk about what collaboration really is, because we often get it mixed up. A lot of times we think collaboration just means being helpful or dividing up tasks, but that's not collaboration. That's coordination or teamwork. Teamwork is about sharing the workload. Collaboration is about sharing the thinking. Real collaboration happens when people bring ideas, even half-formed ones, into the open. When they're willing to say, okay, here's what I've got so far. What do you see? And then others start to build on it, shape it, and strengthen it. Instead of keeping ownership in one person's hands, the team keeps it in the middle of the table. And as the leader, you set the tone here. If I walk into a meeting needing to have all the right answers, people will play it safe. But if I come in curious, asking questions, making space, resisting the urge to jump in too quickly, I signal that partnership is expected here. So here's a simple question that you can try that changes the dynamic in a room. What am I missing that you see? The question communicates humility on the part of you as the leader, and it invites wisdom from the whole team. When leaders model that kind of curiosity, they unlock creativity. And that's when collaboration starts to show up in real powerful ways. So when we think about innovation, it's easy to picture big breakthroughs, the kind of game-changing ideas that transform a business or even a culture or the world. Think of like the iPhone. But in reality, innovation usually doesn't come from a single aha moment. It comes from people working together, building on one another's ideas and discovering new possibilities that they could never see on their own. That's why collaboration is so critical. When leaders create an environment of trust where people feel safe to share early thoughts without fear of being judged, some powerful things can happen. The ideas don't just add up, they start to multiply. One leader I worked with recently told me the best ideas in our company rarely come out fully baked and formed. They come out half baked, and the team shapes them into something better. That's innovation. It's not about getting it right the first time. It's about creating space where people can think together. And the research backs this up. Adam Grant says the most original ideas come from generating lots of possibilities. Some won't work, but the process of sharing and refining is what produces the breakthroughs. So here's the takeaway. Innovation is less about having all the right answers and more about creating the right environment. Leaders who model curiosity encourage contribution and value every perspective, and they unlock innovation through collaboration. All right, so how do we make this practical? Well, the good news is you don't need to overhaul everything at once. Collaboration grows out of a few simple practices that leaders repeat consistently. Let's take a look at 4 proven practices to help you. Number 1, foster psychological safety. Here's the reality. People won't bring their best ideas forward if they're worried about being judged, shut down, or even ignored. If the cost of speaking up feels too high, most people will just play it safe. And when it happens, collaboration never gets off the ground. As leaders, we set the tone for whether people feel safe or not. Every time we respond to an idea, we're teaching our team what's welcome and what isn't. So if I roll my eyes or rush to judgment or quickly point out flaws, I may not realize it, but I'm telling people, don't risk it. But when I pause and I lean in and I thank someone for sharing, even if their idea isn't fully baked, I'm sending the opposite message. Hey, it's safe here. Your voice matters. Go ahead, share with us. Here's a practical step you can try in your next meeting. Set aside the first 15 minutes for ideas only. No evaluation, no judgment. Just collecting and thanking people for putting their thoughts out on the table. You're not promising to adopt every idea. You're just promising to hear them. You know, Google's research on high-performing teams found that psychological safety was the single biggest predictor of success. More than skill, more than experience, and more than tenure. Why? Because safety unlocks contribution. When people feel safe to contribute, collaboration becomes possible. Henry Cloud puts it this way: grace makes it safe. Truth makes it productive. I love that. As leaders, our job is to create both the grace that makes people feel safe and free to speak up, and the truth that keeps the conversation moving towards outcomes. So if you want to foster collaboration that fuels innovation, start by asking yourself this: am I leading in a way that makes it safe for people to take risks with their thinking? Because safety is the soil where the bold ideas truly grow. Okay, the second move is learning to treat failure as a learning opportunity. Here's the truth. You cannot innovate without risk, and you can't risk without the possibility of failure. It's just impossible. The leader's job is to reframe failure so that the whole team sees it not as the end of the road, but as the tuition we pay for progress. When leaders do this, collaboration gets stronger. People are more willing to test out new ideas, share what they're learning, and build on each other's experiments and ideas. Amy Edmondson, who pioneered the concept of psychological safety, calls this intelligent failure, failing in pursuit of discovery. And Thomas Edison, after thousands of prototypes, said, well, I haven't failed. I just found 10,000 ways that it won't work. I love that mindset. That's so good. So don't just tolerate failure, harvest it. Ask questions like, okay, what did we attempt? What did we learn that we could not have learned otherwise? How can we build on this learning together? Failure handled this way just compounds into wisdom, and wisdom fuels innovation. The third move is to share ownership. Here's the thing. People don't fully commit to something if they feel like passengers on the bus. They commit when they can see how their role actually moves the vision forward. When they feel like they have skin in the game, their level of energy and creativity completely changes. Too often, leaders unintentionally keep ownership just to themselves. We think, well, we're protecting people by making the decisions, or, hey, we think faster and we'll just handle it. But when we do that, the team learns to wait and watch instead of contribute. I worked with a leader in the consumer goods industry who realized that this was happening in her department. Team meetings had become really just like one way updates. She spoke, they listened. Engagement was low, and turnover was starting to become a problem. But through coaching, she began to make a shift. Instead of just reporting, she started connecting each person's role to the bigger vision. She also began asking her team for input on key decisions and then actually using their ideas. The results were dramatic. People started showing up differently. They weren't just clocking in and out. They felt like owners of the work. And within a year, their engagement scores jumped and the turnover problem that she was experiencing completely went away. That's the power of sharing ownership. Collaboration stops being something we ask people to do as a favor, and it becomes the way the team just works every single day. Simon Sinek says it this way: when people understand the why, they're far more committed to the what. Leaders who share ownership connect people to that deeper sense of purpose. And when that happens, collaboration and innovation just naturally follow. The fourth move is to protect what we at Building Champions call on time. Daniel Harkavy introduced this concept in his book, Becoming a Coaching Leader. On time is the discipline of stepping out of the daily whirlwind to intentionally work on the business, not just in it. It's the time leaders set aside to reflect, plan, and create clarity. So here's the truth. If you don't make space for on time, the urgent will always crowd out the important. You'll spend your days reacting instead of leading. For some leaders, on time is a 90-minute block each week. For others, it's a couple of shorter sessions sprinkled across the week. What matters isn't the format. It's that you defend it with the same importance as your most critical meeting. So what do you do in this on time? Well, you use it to step back and evaluate what's working and what's not. You reconnect your team's daily work to the bigger vision. You identify small adjustments that can make a big impact, and you use the time to think ahead instead of just catching up. Peter Drucker once said, "Follow effective action with quiet reflection." From the quiet reflection will come even more effective action. That's exactly what on time does. It gives you the margin to lead proactively rather than reactively. And here's the key. On time isn't just for executives. Every leader at every level can benefit from it. And if you want to multiply its impact, ask your team to block their own on time as well. Imagine what happens when not just the leader, but the whole team has the space to step back, think strategically, and come prepared with better questions and sharper ideas. That's when collaboration really accelerates innovation. So here's the challenge. Look at your calendar and block this time this week. Start with 60 minutes, call it on time, protect it like it matters, and then encourage your team to do the same. Okay. We've covered a lot in a short time here, but here's the truth. None of this will matter unless you put it into practice. Collaboration and innovation don't come from knowing more. They come from leaders who are willing to take action. So here's my challenge. Before the end of the week, choose one move that you'll put into practice. It might be running a no judgment ideation session, or launching a small pilot where failure is treated as learning, or having a role to vision conversation with someone on your team. Or, like we just said, blocking that on time on your calendar. Choose the thing that you're going to do. Write it down, share it with someone, put it on your calendar, because momentum doesn't come from good intentions. It comes from courageous action. And here's the good news. You don't have to do everything at once. Innovation rarely starts with a big, giant leap. It starts with one intentional step. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. Collaboration isn't something extra you tack onto your leadership. It's a daily practice. Every time you create safety, ask better questions, treat failure as learning, or protect time to think, you're shaping the culture of your team. And the way you show up as a leader doesn't just impact results, it impacts people. You're creating an environment where your team can bring their best selves, where innovation can thrive, and where better humans truly become better leaders. So, as you step back into your week, remember the next breakthrough from your team won't come from one person's brilliance. It will come from the way that you lead people to think, grow, and create together. Thanks for being here today. Hey, we're cheering you on. If you want to know more about what we do and how we help leaders, teams, and organizations, check us out. Scan one of these QR codes. And if this hit home today for you and you think it'll hit home for someone else, please pass it along. We love referrals. Thanks. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.